Today we're going to talk about the different types of child abuses. The other category of abuse that we can discuss today is secondary abuse. Now, this is a term that many of you may or may not have heard of, but secondary abuse constitutes three elements. It could be a child sharing their story of sexual abuse with another child. So this child, the second child, is not directly a victim of child abuse, but because at such a young age, if you're hearing these stories from your peer, it impacts you, and it is a form of abuse. It can sexualize, and it can have the same impacts as sexual abuse. The other type of secondary abuse is objectification. Unfortunately, in some cultures, women are really objectified, whether it is eve teasing or it is in movies or in the kind of dances that they present. So objectification may not be a direct form of abuse, but the victim, the person who is being objectified, feels lack of respect for their body, especially if it involves a child who is growing up around 9 to 14 years of age. That's the time when it's the most vulnerable, because they start realizing that for some strange reason they are an object of desire. One special kind of secondary abuse is the abuse that the victim's family goes through. Now let's take an example. A child is sexually abused at a young age. One of the impacts of sexual abuse is anger. Now this victim, if he has siblings, or once he grows as an adult, once he gets married or is in a relationship, he's going to have a lot of anger issues, maybe even at workplace. So those people who are involved in his life are going to be victims of secondary abuse. We can take another example. Let's take the other extreme, that a child is victim of emotional abuse and one of his coping mechanism has been abandonment, staying away from conflict, do not want to get involved in relationships. So the effect in future would be, if he does get married, then the spouse would feel abandoned. The spouse will not have any intimacy. And the reason being that marriage is the spark, or a relationship is a spark which ignites all those unresolved feelings which happen due to child abuse. So that is another secondary form of abuse, very, very impactful. One specific example of secondary child abuse is child actors. We don't realize this, right, when we see children acting in movies. Most filmmakers are very, very sensitive and very good to children. However, in some countries, depending on the culture, sometimes they're not as sensitive to children. Let's say if a child actor is given a scene where his parents are dying, or there's a traumatizing scene. Now, at that young age, the child doesn't really know whether that's reality or that's acting. So they go ahead and give the shot, and they are asked to emote accordingly, maybe through crying or through yelling or screaming. But that kind of an experience would impact the child from inside. Some of the things that we sometimes don't think about, right? But that can be very impactful to the child, and it is a kind of secondary abuse. In our upcoming series, we will be going into details about each one of these different types of abuses. One thing I do want to tell you, that this topic of child abuse can be a very dark, very gory topic. However, I assure you, there is light at the end of the tunnel. On our channel, we're going to have a different perspective about this issue. We're going to do a lot of learning, a lot of growing together. And if that's what you want, hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. And remember, laugh the loudest, love the deepest, and live to the fullest. Thanks.